time when every dollar counts, Capital Ford in Santa Fe is stepping up and offering employee pricing for everyone. Yes, employee pricing for everyone is now available on new Fords. You pay what Ford employees pay. Employee pricing means save up to $9,000 off MSRP on a new 25 Ford F-150 or save up to $4,800 off, plus 3.9% APR on a new 24 Ford Bronco. From America, for America. We're Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
I am still on mute, hitting you with the triple hey. How's everybody doing? My name is Ryan Tamori. I'm flying solo tonight. Ed was in Italy. Nick will be hosting Together We Howl tomorrow night. And I'll do some house cleaning here. Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. Despite the fact of what's going on around the world, we don't like to talk politics on there, but I hope everybody had a great weekend. Tonight's show, Spencer Hill in about 4 minutes. He is a UNM alumni and a race car driver. I am not going to sit here and pretend I know anything about cars in general. They got me from A to B, and I used to take mass transit in and out of New Jersey and Manhattan. Excited to have him on. We are working with, I got to shout out to Jeffrey Gordon, Casey Optical 2. They will be releasing his sunglasses on Friday night. We will be doing a live show from there as well. He will join us also on Friday, and tentatively Jason Eck on the show on Friday, UNM head football coach. Spencer Hill at 8:15, and then we begin our Mountain West Conference football preview, trying to break it team by team. I love Sean Ryder. He's still in my Thunder and podcast. Sean, I don't mean that. Sean O'Toole tonight for Mountain West Connection, talking United States Air Force Academy, and it gives me a chance to play some logins. I know they were Navy pilots in that movie. So 8:15, Spencer Hill, 8:45, Sean O'Toole to talk about this upcoming 2025 United States Air Force Academy football. Some house cleaning first. The Pit Press Plus, your all access pass to the heart and the hustle of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department. With a monthly or yearly subscription, you'll unlock behind the scenes stories you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a diehard fan, a stats junkie, or just here for the spicy locker room gossip, the Pit Press Plus has something for you. Subscribe today. I can't talk. Support local sports journalism. That includes us. That includes the Albuquerque Journal, and that includes the Santa Fe New Mexican. Sorry, I'm watching the Reds and the Yankees. Sorry about that. And the Mariners and the and the Twins. Remember, real Lobos don't settle for the sidelines. $2 a month or $25 for the entire year. We're running a sale right now, $19.99. All Lobo, no filter. Go to thepitpressnm.com and stay in the loop with Lobo Sports. Follow the Pit Press for exclusive updates, interviews, and behind-the-scenes content. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and the Pit Press, all at the Pit Press NM, and we're on TikTok at the Pit Press. Follow us there. Tomorrow night is the third installment of Together We Howl, continued partnership with 505 Sports Venture Foundation and Kurt Roth. This is a virtual series that spotlights the heart and hustle behind the University of New Mexico Athletic Department through live streams and podcasts on Wednesdays throughout the summer. Together We Howl extends beyond the field, offering fans an inside look at stories, voices, and community spirit that drive Lobo athletics. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, UNM football offensive coordinator Luke Schleisner, 7 p.m. on our platform channel, whatever you want to call it. Just very quickly before I get to Spencer Hill. We're going to check out the comments. Reposted the stream. Thank you. Again, tomorrow night, Luke Schleisner, offensive coordinator on Together We Howl. Thursday night, I didn't even mention that, for athletic director, University of New Mexico athletic director, Fernando Lobo, tentatively, and former All-American track athlete. You might know her as Sandy Fortner. She now goes by Sandy Martin. She will be joining us. As I mentioned, I wanted to talk to a few more athletes that didn't play football or basketball. And what better way to start with an All-American, still efforting Jeannie Fairchild, and a couple other names that I've mentioned. But yeah, Fernando Lobo and Sandy Martin on Thursday night. Friday, 5 to 7, we'll be at Rio Bravo Brewing Company. 5 to 7. Spencer Hill will be joining us, trying to book other guests. And tentatively, my understanding is Jason Eck. Join us out there 5 to 7. It is a release party for Spencer Hill's sunglasses, which now brings me to my next guest. I think I've said Spencer Hill in the last couple minutes more than I would have ever imagined, but I'm excited to have him on. Hang tight. All right, very happy to have our next guest on. He is a race car driver from Albuquerque. He has over 35 wins and multiple championships in micro and sprint cars. He's a UNM graduate and former NASCAR development program participant. He now races and announces in the 360 Wing Desert Series. I'm not going to lie, I don't know what that is. After a serious spinal injury in 2024, he's working toward a comeback in the fall of this year. Off the track, he's launched a signature sunglass line with Casey Optical 2 and remains a proud ambassador for New Mexico motorsports, New Mexico's motorsports scene. I almost had that. I butchered the end. His name is Spencer Hill. Spencer, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
Hey, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. I am just tuned up. It's been a great week so far, and we all get to build up towards Friday, where you just told everybody we're going to be dropping a brand new signature sunglasses line in partnership with Casey Optical 2. So not so much on-track stuff this week as what I'm used to, but a very, very exciting week nonetheless. And I appreciate you guys all having me on over at the Pit Press.
No, thank you for joining us. I will have you plug your sunglasses at the end. I'm glad you did it at the beginning, but we'll wrap this up with you talking about Friday. I'm looking forward to it. I got to ask, and I'm sorry, I'm not much of a car guy. Do I watch the Daytona 500? Yes. Do I make jokes about NASCAR? Yes. Did I learn a lot about NASCAR from an episode of South Park? Yes. But what inspired you to get behind the wheel at just 8 years old?
Well, I think that it all probably started before I even really figured out my direction that I wanted to go in my professional life. You just said 8 years old. That's pretty young for anybody to get into something like motorsports. And surprisingly, it's very difficult for kids, even eight, getting into their early teens, to break into motorsports, especially here in New Mexico, because as you and I'm sure a lot of people that regularly listen to the Pit Press, uh, not a huge racing town here in New Mexico. So for me, it all starts way back even before then. It was funny. My parents always joked that whenever I was being born, the nurse accidentally bumped into the TV remote and the Daytona 500 was replaying on the TV. So I think it may have been just destiny from there. But nonetheless, I didn't want to do anything else in my life growing up other than be a professional race car driver. And working my way towards that was kind of uncharted for me because I don't come from a racing family by any means. I'm first generation. And it all started when I was 8 years old. I finally was able to get behind the wheel of a speedway go-kart, and that was here around the Albuquerque area. And so we just started out in those go-karts from age 8 all the way up until about 12 years old. Traveled across the country with my dad and his brother, and just kind of started creeping up from there. Then I moved into micro sprints. I'm sure we'll go into a little bit of the NASCAR development program stuff that I did as well before ending up where I am right now today, which is doing a lot of work on the journalism side with professional motorsports such as NASCAR, IndyCar, World of Outlaws, but also still staying behind the wheel myself with sprint cars here in the Southwest region. So it's been kind of a very interesting story as far as it goes from start to finish. But man, I wouldn't want to do anything else with my life.
My background is, and I don't mean to make this about myself. I work for newspapers and now I do this kind of part-time or almost full-time. I do have a day job. So I admire that. And then we'll delve into a little bit more in your career, but I appreciate you. And you and I have a little bit of that in common there. I like that a lot. Can you describe the moment you won your first race at the age of 9 and how it shaped your passion for racing? I know you already delved in that, but I see Ricky Bobby in the back. If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's kind of all a blur. I mean, I've bumped my head a couple times since that win, of course, but I know that once I finally had that accomplishment and I had a trophy in hand and I could kind of say that I accomplished something, even at a young age of 9 years old, it basically was then concrete as far as in my own mind of, okay, this is something that I can work hard towards. And I feel like if I just continue to work really hard, make the right connections, and be humble and kind to others, that I can create some sort of professional career in this. Now, they always joke in racing that to be a millionaire, you better start with $3 million. So I understand that doing it from kind of a more of a family and regional standpoint is not super realistic as far as a long-term career. But with me, even from the first get-go, when I won that first race at 9 years old, I realized, you know what, no matter what I do moving on for the rest of my life, if I can at least set myself up to where I'm able to continue to race and have fun and still enjoy it every weekend, then everything else in life is okay. And I've kind of gone through that being my mindset from then on. I mean, every single thing that I've done in my professional career has been with the idea in mind of, okay, I'm doing this because it allows me to go racing on the weekends. And with that being kind of the twisted mindset versus just trying to put all your eggs into one basket and then being disappointed if it doesn't exactly work out, I feel like I was able to kind of temper my expectations a little bit. And I still love it just as much today as I did when I was 9 years old.
That is awesome. That's a great story. You mentioned that you are a first generation driver. What challenges did you face breaking into the racing world? My dad wanted me to go to MIT. That didn't happen. My mom wanted me to go play offensive line at a Big Ten school. That didn't happen. So I relate to you.
Yeah, I think that when you are getting into anything first generation, I don't care if it's basketball, football, business, especially racing for my experience, it's just so many obstacles that you have to try to endure. I don't want to say on my own, because I had a great support group, including my parents, family, friends, and partners, but it's just uncharted territory because you don't really know what you don't know. And so whether it's anything from how the cars are actually set up, because when you're doing it as a family, I mean, my dad and my uncle were my crew chief at the time. So they're trying to figure out a car just as much as I'm trying to figure out how to drive this thing around the track. But it also goes into the business side of racing too, as far as my family didn't really have a whole lot of connections in the sport. So trying to get those early sponsors, trying to make the right connections to make sure that I'm getting aligned with a team that is correct for me and my future path. I mean, all of that was a lot of trial and error. And I feel like even as a second generation, third generation, and so on, it just makes it so much easier to develop someone from a young age and make sure that they're on the right path. So I got super lucky that we made a lot of decent decisions throughout my early career. And now I've made some great connections in both the racing industry and the business industry here in New Mexico and the Southwest United States that I've just been super lucky to be able to still continue doing it today.
Love that answer as well. You know, I understand there's more to that South Park episode that I bring up, and I know a lot more went into racing. I'm not dumb. I think you know, there was always a joke, and then Talladega Nights. You know, if you didn't watch that, that movie really helped. There's a lot more into it. And before I get rambling, because I'm not into cars, you have over 35. And side note, since I saw Ricky Bobby in the background, one of my favorite lines in there is not like what you think it would be. It's his dad, the actor Gary Cole, who I love, is an Office Space character actor. He says, "Close the weed, cowboy. I got weed here." And I don't know why. It's just how he's like, when he says close the door, cowboy. I think that's funny. But anyway, not to get off topic there. That's going to make me want to watch that movie tonight. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It is a classic.
Yeah, it's the best. I even love Michael Clark Duncan in it. You have over 35 wins in micro sprints and multiple championships. Can you talk about a little bit of those? And is there one victory that stands out, you know, that's especially meaningful to you?
Yeah, I think that every single one of those wins that I'm able to have to my credit has been super special to me. Again, my partners, my team, family, friends. I think that I'll give you two. How about that? Two of the most important ones that I've had as far as recently. 2023, I was able to win a big micro sprint race up in Aztec, New Mexico, and that paid $4,000 to win. And that was the highest to date purse that I've won in the micro sprint world. And I think that one was really special because for the last 6 years or so, I've only been part-time in the micro sprint, which if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of that, I'm happy to do that too. But basically a micro sprint is the smaller version of a full-size sprint car, which I currently race full-time for a team called SEH Motorsports out of Rio Rancho. But the micro sprint is actually my own car, family owned. We've had that car for a long time. In fact, that exact car that I won the race in 2023, I just sold that to another family in Texas. So it's going to continue its story because all these cars, they have their own characters and they kind of come to life, just like the movies that you just referenced as well. But the 2023 race there up in Aztec, it was very special to me. I was pulling double duty that night, racing the sprint car and the micro sprint. And I really did not expect to win that by any means. I hadn't had a whole lot of experience in the micro going into 2023. That was the first time I'd had it on track in over 7 months. So I just went out there to go have some fun. And lo and behold, I was able to get the lead with about 4 laps to go. And it was nice to just have all my family, friends, and some partners out there to celebrate in victory lane because it was my first win in about, I believe, 15 races. So a little bit of a dry streak going on. So that one was really special. The other one that was super special to me actually came in the bigger car, the sprint car. And that was at the Vado Speedway Park. In fact, I think the trophy for that is right above Ricky Bobby's shoulder in the background of me. And that was a cool one because it was a national race. So a lot of big names came into town. And I had just rolled off of a little bit of a hot streak, getting 2 races in a row here locally at Sandia Speedway in Albuquerque. Went down to the Vado Speedway Park, which is located in between Las Cruces and El Paso. And again, that was just one of those like stories of where everything didn't seem to be working the entire weekend. And then here it is Saturday night, the main event, and everything just fell right into place. I was able to get the lead with about 10 laps to go there. And by far, that was my biggest victory in the sprint car world to date. So just very special. I think what makes all of those wins the most special, though, is being able to just celebrate it with a team, because really, although I'm the one behind the wheel and I probably do get a lot of the accolades a lot of time, it really is a team sport. And I couldn't do it without the people that surround me and support me 24/7.
I don't think that's probably talked about enough. I mean, when you get into a pit crew, and again, I'm not going to pretend I know everything or anything about it, but I feel like in racing, there is a lot of people that are a support group and around you. I would imagine so, like you just mentioned, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really does matter. I mean, even somebody that's just there and maybe they're just scraping mud or just helping you, get through the evening, whether it's like just getting a helmet to you, cleaning the car, even bringing food or just hanging around and being supportive. Every single person on my team is very, very important. And I'm lucky that I have a lot of great people that actually volunteer their time. A lot of these pit crew guys, at least at my level of racing, are paid very, very little, if at all. So a lot of these guys are volunteers. It's your friends, it's your family. And so when you do have everything go right, and then you get into victory lane, you're able to celebrate together as a team, I feel like it means that much more, because it's not so transactional. It's not just, clocking into a 9 to 5. Everybody puts a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into these race programs. And just that celebration moment together is just unmatched. And I don't know exactly how much you know about racers, but I can tell you one thing. If you're unfamiliar, we like to party hard after race wins. And man, a lot of those shows like Talladega Nights and even the South Park episode, there's a lot of truth in a lot of the jokes that are made in that.
You will have to forgive me that's my reference on that. But the South Park episode is satirical because it does show how much goes into racing. How did your experience with the NASCAR development program influence your approach in racing today?
So with that NASCAR development program, it's very interesting because usually whenever you think NASCAR, most people end up on the East Coast going towards Charlotte, North Carolina. This was actually a program specifically built for West Coast racers, and it was based out of the Sacramento, California area. And I think what was really unique about that opportunity was they looked at it with a perspective of education and not just performance. Performance is necessary. It's a performance sport, just like anything else that you see on TV. But what was interesting was the educational classes that we were taking for this development program. I still have every single note that I ever took through those classes. And we're talking only about 2 years, 3 years that I was in this program. But everything that I learned actually off track, I feel like meant more to me than anything that I learned on track. Because they were just coming in with a lot of veterans from the sport. And it was at all angles too. I mean, we weren't just working on our racecraft or how to set up cars. We were even talking to Bobby Gerald, who I know that his dad, Gary Gerald, he still does a lot of announcing over there in the Sacramento area with sports. But he came in and he was just talking to us about how to conduct an interview, how to support your sponsors. It was so interesting to see all the things that goes into NASCAR and these professional sports that people really don't get to see. And so being able to pull back that curtain a little bit and experience some of the other things on the business side of racing was just remarkable. And I wouldn't have traded that for the world. I think that was more important than anything that I did on track in my time in California.
What's it like balancing driving and announcing duties in the 360 Wind Desert Series?
Well, those are some uncharted territory for me because as much as I enjoy talking about racing and telling the history of it, even writing about it, it was very difficult for me this year to step out of the cockpit of the car and go behind the glass and all of a sudden have to talk about the race and be involved in a completely different atmosphere. For those that haven't really followed my story or don't know much about me, I was racing with this series, the 360 Wing Desert Series, full time last year. And in November, I actually broke my back in a racing accident at Vado Speedway Park. And I ended up breaking my back. I broke my C7 and then my T2 through my T4. And because of those breaks in my vertebrae, I wasn't really sure if I was ever going to be able to return back behind the wheel. So moving into this year, into 2025, I had to think back and say, okay, here's a roadmap of where I want to be, which is back behind the wheel of a race car, no matter what. That's my goal. Every time I spoke about the wreck, about my recovery, I knew that I want to get back behind the wheel, but what can I do in the meantime up until I'm ready for that point? And for me, announcing was a really good opportunity that was brought to me by the promoter of that 360 Wing Desert Series, because we'd spoken before. He knew that I'd had some journalistic experience with NASCAR, and we also did a radio show on ESPN Radio 1017 The Team here locally. We did a magazine as well called the New Mexico Motorsports Report. So he knew that I had the ability to kind of step into a different batter's box, to say in a different terminology there for you. But he wanted to make sure I was comfortable with that too. So for me to have to kind of remove myself from the race night and implement that in a whole different fashion was very difficult to start the year. But I think that it's actually been a huge positive for me as we inch closer and closer to me getting back behind the wheel, because now I'm seeing all this racing for the entire year so far up in the announcer's booth, and I'm able to see and take notes of exactly how drivers are racing each other, what's going on, and more than anything, I'm staying relevant with the series, with my competitors and my partners, and I think that that's going to be a really good tool that I'm going to be able to use to my advantage here when I do get back behind the wheel later on this year.
Transitioning to that, I'm going to ask you about November 15th of last year. It was life-changing. You mentioned you broke your back. How did you mentally and physically handle the recovery process? Obviously, I only see you from about here up, but just by everything, it seems like you're doing well. But again, how did you mentally and physically handle that recovery process?
Well, the oddest thing about this entire recovery thing was I wasn't expecting to be hurt at all in this wreck. We're race car drivers. We have to accept the danger in the sport. And so when I backed the car in the wall and I knew something was wrong immediately with my back, and then the car caught on fire and I had to rip myself out, I was just going through so many emotions laying there in the hospital going, wow, is this really how my story ends in racing? Is this, I mean, all the hard work that I've done going through the camp in California, all the things that I've accomplished, all to end here at 27 years old on a regional race at Vado Speedway Park. Like, I just was not comfortable with that being the end of my story. And so I think more than the physical pain side of it, that was a lot to deal with as well, and all the physical therapy and everything. And I'm going to continue to be dealing with this throughout the entirety of the rest of my career in racing. I think the mental side was the most difficult part of this whole journey, is because I don't know what to do without racing. Everything that I've done up to this point is to make sure that I have an ability to stay behind the wheel of a race car. So with that kind of up in the air and a question at all, I struggled mentally a lot this year. So I think that being able to do some of these other things like crew chiefing and announcing for the series, it's allowed me to put my mind at ease, or at least distract myself a little bit as I'm able to recover and take my time and not feel rushed to get back behind the wheel. Because the last thing I want to do is go and injure my back again and then truly be done. It was just mentally by far the biggest hurdle I've ever had to try to overcome in my entire life.
What role has the racing community played in supporting your journey back to the track?
You know, everybody's been so supportive, Ryan. It's been incredible. People that I never even knew existed out there, people that I've never met before. and of course, all my close friends and family too, not one person has said anything negative about me wanting to get back behind the wheel, me wanting to, jump right back into it on the thing that almost, critically injured me or potentially even took my life. And you would think that there'd be a lot of negative feedback to that. Like, why would you do that? You don't make a complete living just off of racing. Why would you want to go back and risk something that is so precious as life? And not one person has been that way towards me. They've all been very supportive. They understand that racers race. That's all we know how to do. We aren't comfortable doing anything else besides getting behind the wheel of a race car and it going as fast as we possibly can and trying to control something that is seemingly uncontrollable. And without those people surrounding me, I'm not sure I would have been able to make it through this year, because it's just been so weird for me to even talk about it, even go through all the processes of getting better, and then now trying to lay out a runway of, okay, well, here's the next steps to getting back behind the wheel and not being known as the guy that got hurt, in November, being back to where I belong, which is in victory lane.
Do you feel your time away from driving changed your perspective on the sport?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to say that I wish that everybody had some sort of experience similar to this, because I don't want any of my competitors to get hurt. These are all my friends. I mean, we're so close with each other. We help each other out on and off the track. But I do wish that everybody had the opportunity to take a long look at what they've done in racing, look at what their future may hold, and then see it from a different perspective and really come to appreciate what they do have. Because if nothing else comes out of this recovery, even if I'm not able to get back behind the wheel for some reason, I think that me taking this step back and being injured and understanding how lucky I am to be able to do something I love so much has been really, really incredible. I don't wish this on anybody, trust me, but being able to have the opportunity just to be thankful about everything that I have been able to do at still a relatively young age has been pretty eye-opening.
No, it's a really good answer. Joined by Spencer Hill, race car driver from Albuquerque and UNM alumni. So there's the UNM tie-in. But you're prepping 2 new cars. What can fans expect for your return this fall?
Yep. So I do have 2 new cars in the works, trying to get everything turned around. The Micro Sprint that we'd kind of talked about earlier, that's my own car. That's going to be a brand new build. So that's coming from Factor One Racing out of Oklahoma. And that's currently actually right below me in my little garage downstairs. And that's my little passion project. I just love those small cars. They seem to race so well. Looking forward to getting back behind the wheel of that and ultimately going to the Tulsa Shootout in Tulsa, Oklahoma over the winter. And then I'm also getting back behind the wheel of the sprint car, the one that actually injured me back in November. We took that chassis back to our chassis manufacturer, J&J Auto Racing in McKenzie, Tennessee. And surprisingly, they were able to repair that car. So it just got back to us this last week. We got a motor back, have all the parts. So now I'm going through the process of getting that car rebuilt and back to just as good as it was, if not better than before. And I'm hoping to get back behind the wheel as early as the end of the summer. If nothing else, though, fall 2025 is my goal date. And I'll be sure to keep everybody updated on a full schedule whenever I do get that one finalized. And you can find that on my website at spencerhillracing.com.
I would say from what you've endured last November to be in a car, maybe less than a year later, that's quite admirable, man. I respect that a lot. Is there any specific races? You kind of just hit on that, but are there any specific races or venues you're targeting for your comeback?
I've had a lot of people ask me that question, Ryan, and I don't have a great answer yet, because if it was up to me, I'd be racing right now. I would have been racing yesterday. But I also understand that there's really no reason to rush the comeback. I'm cleared from doctors. That was step one. And I'm very, very thankful for that. But with that understanding, they did mention to me, like, the longer I can wait to get back behind the wheel, the stronger my back is going to be for the return. So with me not being in the points hunt for anything right now, I'm not concerned about making an immediate comeback, like to where I have a pressing date of, okay, by July 1, I have to have a car built. We got to be on the road, go, go, go. And I think that's been a good thing for me. It's allowed me to accept some of these other roles that I've taken on with the crew chiefing stuff and the announcing. And now I get to completely plan this comeback exactly how I want. And I think that without releasing too much information, I want my comeback to be before the race that almost took me out, which is coming up again in November at Vado Speedway Park. So I have that one circled on my calendar. And then for the little car, for the micro sprint, I missed out on the Tulsa Shootout last year, which is the largest micro sprint race in the entire world, held every winter. It's actually inside the largest freestanding building in all of North America in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I have that one marked on my calendar as well for sure a comeback date for the little car. So anything that I can get in before that, I'm definitely going to work towards doing. But those are probably my two biggest ones circled on the calendar at this very moment.
Very awesome. What kind of legacy are you hoping to build on and off the track?
That's another great question. When it comes to thinking about a word so as big as legacy is, when it comes to my own brand and what I can do for the future of racing, number one is to try to help the next generation however I can, whether that's financially, if I could get a team together, put a young up and coming driver that I see a lot of my younger self in, that would be incredible. But if nothing else, just try to continue motorsports here in the state of New Mexico and make it even stronger and better than how I found it, because we used to be known for motorsports here. I mean, I'll throw some names out there, but Al Unser, I mean, the Unser family was very well known out here in Albuquerque in particular. I mean, there's even a street named Unser out here because of that. So if I can just kind of bring racing back to New Mexico and make it a strong presence again, that would be amazing for me. But nonetheless, I just want to make sure that the future generation has the same opportunities that I've been given, and anything that I can do to help young kids out, let them know, like, you do have a support system out here. We want you to make it. We want you to be successful. And if that's a little kid watching this podcast right now, if they want to reach out to me, I'm all ears. I always want to help out anybody I possibly can, and just make sure that we have a future in the sport that I love so much.
I will probably shock you with this. Yes, I knew that Al Unser Jr. won Indy 500s with Indy cars. And I went to elementary, middle school with one of his daughters. So there you go.
There you go.
Yep. And to many of the viewers that hate me because of my UNM takes, yeah, I live near or off Unser. I'll leave it at that. What, and I'll ask this question first before we get into the sunglasses. You're active on multiple platforms. How has social media helped you grow your brand and connect with fans?
I think that social media has been a huge, huge asset for me when it comes to anything with brand building and just bringing awareness to the community too here in New Mexico. As I mentioned earlier, New Mexico, not a huge racing town. So a lot of what I have to do to represent my sponsors, my partners, and even get in touch with my fans has to go through that route of being on social media and just being available in a lot of different dimensions. We have a racetrack here in Albuquerque, for example, but just so happens the series that I'm aligned with and kind of my goals and my regional aspect that I'm approaching the last few years with, I don't really race here locally that much. So I have to think outside of the box. And that's when coming up with ideas like my newest partnership with KC Optical 2 with the sunglass line. Another one is like there's a local die-cast shop called House of Cars out here in New Mexico. These are all amazing businesses that we have here. But with me not being able to race in front of them as often as I would hope, and I'm sure they would hope, I really do have to kind of think outside of the box and see, okay, well, how can I get my race fans over to their business and make sure that they have a return on their investment with me? Because they're doing a lot to risk, just jumping on board with a regional race car driver in a town that has had a hard time supporting sports in general, but racing especially. So being able to use social media to my advantage on that end has been really important to me. And I appreciate everybody that's been able to follow along on my journey, whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, X, or TikTok.
What inspired you with the collaboration with your sunglasses or with Casey Optical 2 on your sunglasses?
With me, it's kind of funny. You wouldn't really think about it, but I'm technically pretty blind as a race car driver. So I wear contacts, I wear glasses, I wear sunglasses pretty much every single day of my life, and every time I'm out there on track. So it was a very natural fit whenever Casey Optical 2 came to me and said, hey, we have an idea here, and we think it would be really cool if we developed our own signature sunglasses line and kind of built it around the racing brand, because I feel like sunglasses and just eyewear in general is pretty important when it comes to the racing world. You want to be able to see, and everybody in racing knows at least one or two photos of the great Dale Earnhardt Sr. in his big old sunglasses. I mean, it just works so great side by side. And I know that a lot of my fans have been so excited about this new partnership that we have going on here. And I'm excited to bring you along for the ride too, Ryan. I think that, we're going to have one heck of a party coming up on Friday. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how this goes. It's kind of, again, something that's outside of the box. Not a lot of people in my industry have done something like that, to where they've branched out and branded something like sunglasses or any product really with a local flair. So I'm excited. I mean, whether people want to support me or just want to support a local business, I think there's so many great ties to it that I just think that the sky's the limit.
Once again, two things I can relate to you to. I wear sunglasses. I can't do contacts for various reasons. I wear sunglasses. I'm blind as a bat. I realized almost 20 years ago I couldn't read the ticker on ESPN, the bottom scroll. And then we are a small business, Casey Optical 2, as they helped us with our March Madness bracket challenge. And you're kind of a small business in your own way. So he is a let me get that right. He's a race car driver. He's been in the NASCAR development program. I don't know. When I was learning about you, man, I saw NASCAR. I mean, that's still a big deal with that name in front of that development program. And again, you now race and announce in the 360 Wing Desert Series. I wish you the best of luck on your recovery. Obviously, I'll talk to you again on Friday, but for tonight, thank you for your time, man. It was a pleasure meeting you, and repeating myself, I cannot thank you for your time tonight, letting myself learn a little bit about you. The guys that normally join the show, not on tonight, but also our viewers and listeners. Thank you for your time tonight, Spencer.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and thank you everybody for listening in. I know that the racing world is probably foreign for a lot of your listeners, but I appreciate you giving me the platform to kind of educate everybody a little bit. And if you'd like to learn more, please come over, come check me out on SpencerHillRacing.com. Check me out on any of my social media. If you have any questions at all, I'd love to just get in touch with you and just get some more race fans out there.
Spencer, I will get you back to your Tuesday night. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
All right. Take care, Ryan. See you guys.
All right. That was Spencer Hill, race car driver. I'll be meeting him in person on Friday. That was a great conversation. I know he's still on, but I will say this, and it's a compliment. That was a much more intriguing, much more informative, and a pleasure to talk to. I really appreciate that interview. And I am not, as I said, I was educated on NASCAR. Despite watching Daytona a couple times, I was educated on NASCAR from the South Park episode and Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. And I know Spencer's on, but that South Park episode, Cartman drinks Vagisil and becomes a sponsor. His car becomes a sponsored by Vagisil, but of course it's South Park. I mean, I got my sense of humor from Animal House, Blazing Saddles, Ghostbusters. And as I've just turned 38, I was watching 90s prime Homer Simpson. And then I was sneaking watching South Park and when it first premiered in 1997 until this day. Like the first 10 or 12 seasons are still some of my favorite. All right. We will much appreciated to Spencer Hill. I'm going to take a quick commercial break and then we'll be back with Sean O'Toole. Sean's from Mountain West Connection. We will be talking about Air Force, and we have kind of started to turn the clock on June 24th. Football right around the corner. My name's Ryan Smorey. This is the Pit Press Live.
At a time when every dollar counts, Capital Ford in Santa Fe is stepping up and offering employee pricing for everyone. Yes, employee pricing for everyone is now available on new Fords. You pay what Ford employees pay. Employee pricing means save up to $9,000 off MSRP on a new 25 Ford F-150 or save up to $4,800 off, plus 3.9% APR on a new 24 Ford Bronco. From America, for America. We're Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
I forgot I clipped that from Saturday Night Live. Thank you, Jimmy Fallon. All right. And we're back. Thank you, Spencer Hill. That was a fantastic interview. Please check him out. What was it? SpencerHillRacing.com. And I know that his Twitter handle is at Spencer_Hill4. Excuse me, X. All right. I don't want to let my next guest wait any longer. He's patient and he's genuinely, I've never met him in person, but he's genuinely one of the nicest guys I've met. Maybe a little too nice, but I like him and I'm happy to have him on. We are here to talk football. Sean, you know I have to do it.
Let's go.
It's time. And especially we're talking football. He writes for the Mountain West Connection. He covers the United States Air Force Academy. His name is Mr. Sean O'Toole. Sean, it's been too long. How are you doing, man?
I am fantastic. A lot better now that we're getting to talk a little bit of ball here, right? The Kenny Loggins, and it's a perfect time to remind everybody. If Maverick went to the Air Force Academy, Goose would still be riding Rio right now. I think we can all just say that, right?
Yes. Well, and I know he did that. And then I know they're in the Navy, and somebody pointed out to me. I was like, it doesn't matter. The movie's about fighter jets. I don't care.
That's right.
And I had a whole, when Val Kilmer used to live in Taos, New Mexico, and I had a whole, and I didn't do it that night. And I had a whole segment that I was going to dedicate to Val Kilmer. And whoa, hold on. This is not good live internet, but I'm going to do it anyway. Sean.
You are still dangerous. You can be my wingman anytime.
All right. My dad had, I've mentioned this 1,000 times. My dad had the VHS, my dad had the CD, and my dad had the vinyl record soundtrack. So, and then my mom randomly, we were talking, I was hoping there was something, and there was a place that was a movie theater not far from our house, and it is no longer a movie theater. And she's like, your dad and I was pregnant with you, and your dad and I saw Top Gun. I was like, I didn't need to know that information, but now I know it. Getting into football, Sean, you watch, I will start here because I thought what Navy and Army were able to accomplish last year was fantastic. And the Army quarterback, his name is escaping me. Bryson Daly.
Captain America, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I know you cover Air Force, but for me, I think and it's been a hot minute, but I think for somebody who watches college football like a religion, I thought Army and Navy being as good as they were was good for college football last year. I wanted your thoughts on that.
Oh, for sure. And listen, that's the closest thing that we have, the military academies, to college football, at least as I knew it growing up, right? I mean, it's the influence right now with the portal, NIL, and everything else. I really do. I think it's the closest thing to the college football that I grew up knowing and loving. And I still do. Overall, it's fantastic, right? It's not hard to get behind a military academy, but those schools, right? Both of them have not peaked like that, where they've both been really, really highly competitive. Both were dipped in and out of the AP polls, right? They both had very, very close to playing for a conference championship in Army's first year in a conference. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's nice to get their brands a little bit of exposure too, right? I think people, they get excited right at the end of the year when they have America's game, but a lot of good football was going on before that between both those schools. And people forget, right? Navy had a pretty good rebound, right? Navy had a coming off a couple soft seasons. Last year was a nice rebound for them too. So it's not as if like they had been enduring years of success. They had previously, but they went through a few down seasons. So Brian Newberry got his boys running pretty good. So
I thought it was the tale of the two quarterbacks there, because Blake Horvath, and that sounds like a Army name or a Marine name to me, not a midshipman. And I'm thinking about what? Oh my goodness, he passed away. He's in Saving Private Ryan. He's the sergeant. He's Sergeant Horvath, and the name's escaping me. But I don't know. Blake Horvath had a great year too. So I mean, I thought for him and Bryson Daly, and I know they both ran into Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame killed Navy in the Meadowlands. I was excited for that game. It kind of went how I thought, and Notre Dame played for a national championship. Tom Sizemore is his name, the actor. I don't know. I thought it was fantastic. Now, switching gears to, if you've never been there, one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. And I've been to West Point, and West Point is, how did you feel about 2024 with Air Force? It wasn't a Troy Calhoun team to me.
No, it wasn't. I mean, they turned over a ton, and they're used to, they do a pretty good job. They have a program, they have a routine, they know the type of players they want, and they usually plug and play pretty well. But the attrition that they experience literally by graduation, the NFL draft, I did, yes, the NFL draft, Air Force put players into the NFL, and just graduation, they lost so much production. Then they had a bit of injuries, which no one wants to hear about injuries, but when you're trying to break in a lot of new starters, it's a compounding factor. They took a while to settle under center. A lot of that was probably influenced by the offensive line taking time to gel. So it started to come together at the end of the year. But look, as an Air Force fan, you got spoiled. I mean, double-digit wins almost year over year over year over the last 5 years. They won. People forget after one down season. By the way, 5 wins for a down season. Like, there are schools that would kill for a 5-win season. But
trust me, we know that here.
I don't name names. No, but it's tough. I think people would have that expectation, and reality hit hard last year. You can only suffer so much turnover on personnel, and player groups. So that's they took their lumps. Schools like Colorado State, that Air Force is dog walked year after year, like finally got their comeuppance and returned the favor. So I hope everyone got to enjoy a little bit of payback. New Mexico, right? New Mexico put a pretty good hurting on them with that offense. So, but yeah, a lot of payback. I think there's enough to be optimistic about the way the season ended, though. So we'll see. But yeah, it was tough. It's not what you expected. I think most people who were familiar with the team and the program, you had to temper your enthusiasm going into last year. I don't think anybody was necessarily expecting another 10-9 win season. I think everyone expected, like, if we can squeak a bowl game, that's not a bad season. So, but that's about where they landed, right? I mean, they almost squeaked into a bowl based on they took a 5-7 team into bowl season. I think it was Louisiana Tech. So Air Force almost squeaked in, but not quite enough juice last year.
And they do that. When you're when you're on that fringe and there aren't enough 6-6 teams.
AP scores, academics.
So Air Force would have been right in there.
So I could be wrong, but I thought they were atop that list. But I think there's some element with the bowl that elected Louisiana Tech reserves the right to, based on whether they think there's going to be a geographic advantage, meaning for viewership, things like that, they can elect another team. I think there was some scenario like that came into play, because I can say with a high level of confidence that Air Force was not behind many, if any, teams in the AP scoring.
I forgot about this. Do you know who beat Louisiana Tech in the bowl game? Army.
Absolutely, probably bludgeoned them. I'm going to go on a limb and say
27-6. It was where did it go? It was the Independence Bowl. Okay. I don't know why they didn't. BYU played Colorado in the big. I know they didn't play each other, but they should have had Army and Air Force play again. Why the hell not? That would have been fascinating. You mentioned it was Merrimack, and then they lost 7 in a row, but they ripped off 4 at the end. Fresno's impressive. The other 3, I don't care. You got wins, and you shut out Oregon State. 36-28 over Fresno State, 28-0 over Oregon State, 22-19 over Nevada, and you get 31-20 over San Diego State to close the year. Can Troy Calhoun, and I would think he would be a coach that's able to do this. Can you capitalize with that and use that momentum into this year?
Yeah, they definitely can. Again, I think I don't know that you're realistically looking like, they're going to win the conference or they're going to rip off 11 wins again. It depends. A lot of it depends on what you're going to get from under center, which that can be said about a lot of teams, but it's going to have a lot to do with Air Force this year. At the end of the year, the offensive line got going. And if you know anything about Air Force or the academies in general, right, they're a good offensive line, good running game. It covers a lot of sins, particularly keeps the defense off the field, keeps them rested, limits possessions for the other team. And they really did. I mean, their offensive line coaches, I genuinely mean this. I don't know there's anybody better in college. And as someone who sits Pennsylvania, just not too far from Phil Trotwine, who's widely considered the top O-line guy in college football. Steve LeBeau, Coach Lobo's he's amazing. He brought that line group together. They platooned so many different players throughout last year, and by the end of the year, you saw a good core. This year, you might see 3 or more people as all conference players from that offensive line group. And if that's the case, they're going to be in good shape. They're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. They're going to be able to run the ball. They got a good running back room, particularly depth at fullback. That's going to have a lot to do with it. But just like anything, the point guard, right, the quarterback in this offense is what's going to really come down to making a difference on pushing those wins just how much higher from last year. So there is a lot to build on from last year. That was my long-winded way of answering there. But yes, those are things they did well, that they were able to push through last year in a lot of those ways. And going to the shutout you mentioned, Oregon State, here's a little tie to your New Mexico. They got a little bit of time in for their quarterback, Giovanni McCoy, who was a Idaho transfer, played under your current coach. I think he's off to Temple now. He transferred yet again, but he got a little taste of Air Force football that game. He unfortunately won't be around to do that again this year. He's transferred out of the Air Force's schedule. I'm sure that has everything to do with why he transferred to Temple, right? But little tie into the podcast here.
No, he wanted to go to Philly. He wanted to go.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. And one of my lights just went out on me in the podcast, so I'll the live stream. I get mad at everybody for calling it a podcast. I just call it a podcast. Yeah, I don't know why you'd go. There's going to be people in Philly like, why would you go to New Mexico? I'd go to Temple because you're in a big city. I like being a Central Jersey and a New York City guy. I do love Philly. Philly's a fantastic town. I don't know why you'd go there though. I mean, I guess it's in this day of NIL and transfer portal, you can play right away. Which scares me, and this scares me in a good way because I think when the academies are good, it's good for college football. With most returning starters, and I know there's an issue with the quarterback. I think Quentin Hayes is returning. What are the realistic expectations for this Air Force team in 2025?
So Quentin Hayes is not returning.
That's right.
Yeah, he showed a lot of promise end of the year. Had a lot to do with why this team turned around. So there's very little experience returning against quarterback. Josh Johnson played a bit last year. He got in some very past predictable situations against Baylor, was where he got a lot of time, a lot of his pass attempts, which is, in that offense, if the defense knows you're passing out of a conventional triple option team, it's hard to make hay. So he got knocked around a bit in that game, but he esteemed himself quite well as a commit out of high school, a dual threat quarterback. He's actually his yards per carry, I think he averaged almost 9 yards per carry. So we'll see if he ends up being the guy, being the upperclassman, being the only guy that's taking meaningful snaps at quarterback. Actually, I think he's the only guy that's taken snaps at quarterback that's left on the roster. He's certainly a good chance at starting next year. There's a local product out of Colorado there, Liam Sarka. He's going to be in the mix. He got a jersey last year, traveled with the team. There's a lot. I hear a lot of good things about him. If you look at what he did in high school, he's what you think of a high school stud player, right? He fits kind of that mold of an Air Force player. We'll see though. It's a little bit different when a lot of bullets go and you have to get that experience by fire. So that's what's going to end up happening, right? It's probably going to be one of those two. McGuire Martin, he'll be back again. He got a jersey as a freshman last year, traveled with the team too. So it's going to be someone new under center on a more permanent basis. Like I said, Josh Johnson got some experience last year. We'll see. They did some things that there could be excited about, but the sample size is just so small. What you hope for is something you mentioned earlier. You look at Blake Horvath, and a guy took such a big leap last year under Cronick's offense at Navy. And the year before, he took lumps. He turned the ball over a bit. And then whether it was the new OC, what they were doing on offense, or just the experience, which is what you kind of hope happens, it clicked. And man, he put just an outstanding season together for Navy. So you got to hope that happens at Air Force, that something clicks under center. Because if that happens, you could be looking at a team that goes from clawing to get to bowl eligibility to a team that they may compete for a spot playing in the conference. It's going to have a lot to do with it.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. Oh my God, I know how to say it. Ken Niumatalolo, from Navy, and he's at San Jose State. They had quite some success. They had Nick Nash. They had that other guy. I don't know how Nick Nash went undrafted. I thought he went from running, running the ball, and he's now spreading it out at San Jose State. They have that kid Eggert. That bowl game, the Hawaii Bowl, was phenomenal. Not to change gears away from Air Force, I think a question to you with that, were you impressed? I mean, what you saw, and if you do know about it, were you kind of impressed with how I think Niumatalolo adapted to that? They threw the ball and he kind of had success. And I know a lot of pundits nationally are really big on San Jose State this year. Are you indifferent to that anyway, or do you have a comment on that?
No, I'm glad you brought it up. So I think it's a reflection of, one, what a good coach he is, right? The guy that,
Thank you.
He was at Hawaii, and then, he cut his teeth at Navy and did an outstanding job. He's one of the winningest group of 5 coaches in history. Not one of the most winningest Navy coaches, like group of 5 coaches. It's a big deal. So what he did there was a pretty amazing. I remember when they hired him, and everyone asked, "Oh, you're going to bring the triple option to San Jose State?" And like, no, we're going to have concepts and it's a variety of spread. And it was true. He did. And he installed an offense that was very effective with a brand new quarterback. Yeah, it helps having Nick Nash on the outside. But it's listen, it's exciting to watch. I know when Air Force went into play them, it was earlier in the year, and that's kind of before we really saw the downslide for Air Force in the season. I thought going into the game, like, this game they should win. Man, San Jose State, they can move the ball. Again, I think it's great because Coach Ken's a guy that I have a lot of respect for. I think a lot of people do. And it just shows what a really good coach he is, right? I think a lot of times people look at Troy Calhoun and Jeff Monken and Fisher DeBerry. Fisher DeBerry could have went and coached any number of major programs. Can they do this at a major program? Paul Johnson did. He went to Georgia Tech. And it doesn't mean they all coach the triple option. Troy Calhoun was an NFL coach. These guys, they're good. They're really good. They're not at the military academies because they couldn't get jobs elsewhere. They're smart, execution based. It's really nice to see Coach Ken Niumatalolo go to San Jose State, take a program that I don't know that there was a ton of optimism after Coach Brennan left, that he went in and I think he probably surpassed what the expectations were.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him. I'm interested to see what they're going to be like this year. Brian Newberry and I think Jeff Monken, and I think Jeff Monken last year probably, I think, overshadowed Brian Newberry a tad. But and you kind of mentioned it, and I know probably the answer because Troy Calhoun has been such a staple. And he's done such a fabulous job at Air Force. Do you see either of these guys, and this is not a fair question, but do you see either of these guys better than each other? I mean, if you had to pick one, who are you picking? But I mean, to have, I think, those 3 guys leaders of the academy, I mean, I think it says a lot to what they were able to do with the program, Navy and Army last year.
Yeah, no, listen, they're good coaches. They're not, hey, these are good military academy coaches, right? That's always a caveat. Now, these are good military academy coaches. There's a reason Jeff Monken's names come up a ton when there are openings throughout college football landscape. Newberry, this is his first year, right, that he had a lot of success. I think this is coming into his 3rd year. So 3.5 years, right? He was kind of the interim, the Ken Niumatalolo's last season there. So no, I think they're both great coaches. One of the things that it pains me to admit is like Jeff Monken's resolve on the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, even on the Army teams that weren't the best. They played particularly against Air Force, and he's done so well against them. Air Force owned that history for the longest time. And since Jeff Monken's gotten there, he's been very clear, like they're focused on the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. And all the coaches say that. But I think he had an obsession with that, the way that team approached, and it shows. So, and he, again, his claim to fame, right? I think, when he was in Georgia coaching, they upended Florida years ago. And I think that was probably right before Army hired him up. So they're both really good coaches. Brian Newberry, it's still early to tell. I'll be honest with you. I think one of the best things he did was bring in Drew Cronick. I think he hired a really innovative offensive coordinator at Navy. And I think that's definitely paid off. And they have the let's just say the benefit of having a quarterback running the option that's like just a playmaker, can actually throw the ball too. That adds such an element when you run this offense. So they're both really good coaches. I think probably Jeff Monken's done it a little bit longer, so the sample size is there. But I think if I'm Brian Newberry, I'm going to say, when we punched him in the mouth here last winter, I don't think anybody's saying that. So he'd have a fair argument.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they threw was it 2 years ago? I think Air Force was undefeated, and they played them in Globe Life Field, or was it Mile High?
Well, this last year, or they also played Globe Life. You're right. They played there too.
And they upset them, and I was like, oh my, so much for Air Force like running the table, because I think there was talk maybe they could have been,
Yep, that was the Zach Larrier season. Yeah, they just cracked into the AP. And Army went in and just completely stymied them. I mean, that's when they played. They played they played a neutral site. They played a series there for 2 seasons at the Rangers Stadium. So that started that started a kind of a little slide for the Air Force that year. They only ended up winning, I think, 9-10 games that season. So, but it was that game though they lost, I think, 3 in a row at that point to close the regular season before absolutely drubbing the darlings of that season, James Madison, a bowl game. So
I remember that. That's right. What are the biggest improvements college football fans can see out of this year's Air Force Academy team?
I think in the trenches, you're going to see a really good team. That's where their talent's high, their depth is high. The offensive line, I already kind of talked about how, I think they're going to be a pretty solid unit. And they platoon players, right? Like they'll have some stable guys that are really good, but when they have some depth running in, that's when they seem to really shine. I think they're going to have that. On the defensive line, they have one of the best players in the conference, in Peyton Zdroik. When he's healthy, he's just a madman. He played last year so banged up, and he's still really disruptive. So on the defensive line, between him, Schwartz, and Grovey, and some of the depth behind them, I think in the trenches they're going to be strong, and that's going to make a difference. I think that's honestly that ability to run the ball early in the year, to let some of these new pieces on defense settle in, because they're going to be breaking in basically all new corners. They're going to be breaking in a new linebacker to 2 new linebackers or spur, depending on which set of downs are going to be playing along Blake Fletcher, which he's in the middle of the field. They got a good guy on defense there in Fletcher. But I think those lines of scrimmage are going to have a lot to do with their success. It's going to help also, right, give the quarterback time to settle in, develop whoever that is. That's going to have a lot to do with it, because there's talent in the backfield from their fullbacks, their tailbacks, slot backs. They're going to have players that can make plays if they have someone that can distribute the ball to them. It's going to come down to that. And there's been seasons where Air Force has had talent, but they've had quarterbacks that just they weren't necessarily able to distribute the ball as well. And there were 5 and 7 seasons. There was a couple of them, and I'm not talking about last year. It's happened in the past too. So it's going to have a lot to do with it. But man, that offensive line, when it's cranking, that can do a lot for them. So I think that's what you can look for, though. I don't think you're going to see a team that comes flat out of the gates this year on offense. I think even with the new quarterback coming in, I think you're going to see an effective running game. I think there's too much talent in the backfield. I think the offensive line's gotten too much better. So I think that alone is going to make them pretty competitive.
What do you know about the quarterback situation?
It's good. They're going to lack experience at it, and I'm sure that They're hoping they can get as many points as quick as they can in August against Bucknell, so that they can get a good look at the guys that are playing. Like I said, Josh Johnson, Sarka, whether McGuire Martin fits in there. Those guys, they need the reps. They're going to want to see more out of them. Josh Johnson played last year, and again, it's not fair. Nobody played particularly well under center last year at the beginning of the year, even until towards the end of the year. So it's not fair to say that it was all him, or last year started John Boucher. The team in general, they just took some time to come together, and then at the end of the year, you started seeing that. And again, a lot of that byproduct of that was the stability from the offensive line play, the ability to run the ball, all of those things. But I don't know if it's going to be either of the 2 or the 3. My suspicion is, Troy Calhoun's going to want to go with the guy that's had some experience. So Josh Johnson's going to get every opportunity to play himself and secure that role. But time will tell. There's Troy is never going to tell you who's going to play, even on game day, even as they're under center taking a snap. But that's what I would suspect. But I'm sure they're going to want to make as many meaningful snaps in that early game as possible. For one, you're not going to have one quarterback play this year. It doesn't matter how well one of them plays. That's a position that just gets banged up in this offense. So I think those are guys that you're going to need to develop, and I would fully expect one of those two, Johnson or Zarka, to be the main guy going forward.
I think it's funny that they opened up against Merrimack this year, and then they get Bucknell. They just get the smaller East Coast schools. How critical is that opening game against Bucknell on August 30th?
I think it's good to shake kind of some of the rust off, because after that, it is an absolute bear of a schedule right after that. So that game is going to be really, really important to, one, stay healthy, and to basically find some chemistry. Because I remember last year, you mentioned the Merrimack game, and they scored 21 points against this team. It's not like they were playing against North Dakota State or Montana or one of these FCS schools that were really, really distinguished. Merrimack was not a, let's just say, a highly regarded program, and they struggled to put up 21 points. And you're just like, early season rust. And then you saw game after game after that, they went into conference play right away, and talk about the Spartans. They lost to them, and you could see the offense was just really, really struggling. You don't want to see that this year. You want to see a team that comes out and they can move the ball, able to run the ball, dominate the line of scrimmage, get that out of the way, remove that from the equation, concerns about that, because again, that does so much for this team. It's so much part of their philosophy, being able to control the game, limit possessions, and all those things. So I think that's going to be critical to see them making that progress early in the year this year.
You mentioned the schedule, and it gets after Bucknell at Utah State. They get Boise at home, which is September 20th. The Navy game, I'm gathering that's in Annapolis, October 4th, yes. And then UNLV on October 11th. November 1st is Army. Just for context, I will be at that game. UNM is at Air Force in Colorado Springs on November 22nd. Which game out of all of those is the most formidable challenge?
It's going to be lazy to say it, but probably Boise State, maybe UNLV. On paper, it's going to be one of those. The reality is Army. Army has just been a pain. No matter how good Air Force has been or how down Army has been since Jeff Muggins got there, that team's been a problem. But that's a pretty big clip, right? You're talking about they could be playing conceivably 3 ranked teams in 4 out of their 4 weeks, right? Between Boise, Navy, and UNLV. They could all be fringe top 25 teams over that little clip. Wyoming's never a gimme. Hawaii, it's at Air Force, so that's not quite as bad, but they beat Air Force last time they played at Colorado Springs. So it's a daunting little chunk of the schedule, that 7-game clip. But I mean, Boise, I think is, they've recruited well, they develop well. That's going to be a good team right there. I know Ashton Genty's gone, but the covers are far from bare, what they're working with. So that's going to be a tough game. UNLV is going to be tough, but Army's a problem, and I hate that reality. But Army is a problem. So I would say Boise State or Army are probably the most daunting tasks. And that's saying that while by the way, Navy's probably a more talented team than Army. But there's just something about that stinking team that's been a problem. So yeah.
I remember when I was at West Point, they have, I don't know what building it is, but when you're driving around it and it just says Beat Navy, it's like the cafeteria or something. And it just says Beat Navy. I think Air Force needs something. I don't know if they do or have anything, but they need probably something on the academy grounds that says Beat Army. Speaking of which, what's the key to reclaiming the Commander in Chief's trophy in 2025 for Troy Calhoun?
Oh man, they
Beat Army.
Yeah, right. Well, and like Army's breaking a new quarterback this year, so you got to the guy that's probably going to play is the guy that played against Air Force last year, and people forget, but Bryson Daly didn't even play against Air Force. Coleman played, and he's probably going to be their guy this year. So they do a good job of plugging in people. I think it's going to be how fast the quarterback acclimates in Air Force's offense. They're going to be breaking in corners, but outside of eye discipline, I'm not sure that's as material as it is in other games when you're playing Army and Navy. So I think for them to beat Army, I think they need to be resolute. Army never flinches when they play Air Force. Didn't matter how good they were, they stayed resolute to who they were. They run, and commit to stopping the run. And they did a good job of it. Air Force needs to do the same thing. And we say this like it's so bleak in the Air Force never won. Like over the history of time, right? Air Force has owned that series quite well, and the Commander in Chief's trophy, by the way. But in recent years, it's been tough. They really need to be able to move the ball, and I think that's going to be a lot to do with how quickly that quarterback comes and develops. The game's not until November, so we'll know by then, right? They'll know what they have under center, and then the Navy game. That's going to be tough too. I think Navy's a more talented team than Army. Ironically, the two stud backs they have, Heidenreich and Texka, they're from down the street from me. They're right in the same general area where I live. So they got some really, really good playmakers flanking Blake Horvath at that offense. They need to be able to stop that because it's not as simple as, plugging up the middle, stopping the dive, keeping the fullback out of play. Army, if you don't stop the fullback, they will bludgeon you, and that's it. Navy, they're a chunk play team. They're kind of like some of those Air Force offenses that we used to see when they could kind of throw the ball and hit a Jalen Robinette and some of these guys where the eye discipline goes because they're able to run the ball and then they're able to pop it downfield. I mean, your guy from New Jersey, Zeke Daniels, right? He made a living out of it. He did a fantastic job of being able to make the passing game a threat. That's Navy. I mean, that was Navy last year. They have playmakers. They're going to have to limit those big plays, and that's going to be a big part of it. And it's easier said than done. And a lot of the way they can do that, by the way, is limiting the amount of time that Blake Horvath and that offense has the ball. So if they're able to run the ball, be effective with what I think is a really, really good running back room and good offensive line, they'll have a chance in both those games. Not as if they can't win either of those games. I think a lot of it is revisionist history, right? That the Army game's just been a bugaboo to them. Navy, they played, but Navy's been a back and forth series overall, but it's not as if Air Force hasn't beaten Navy. So they can win both those games, not as if they can't win them. It's going to have a lot to do with how quick that they get settled under center and some of the communication on defense too, particularly the back end, how quick they gel.
Are there any under the radar players for Air Force that you're expecting a breakout season for?
Yeah, I think Cade Frew, if he stays healthy, he's one of the running backs. He's just about 6 yards per carry guy and that was done pretty well banged up last year. He was a pretty well recruited player, but coming out of high school, but he's got a lot of potential. I think if they're able to keep him healthy and get him touches, he's effective. And we're talking about under the radar people, right? So I think he probably fits that mold that pretty well. Dylan Carson gets kind of forgotten. He got injured last year. I think there's a lot of expectations for him at fullback. He's someone that I wouldn't be surprised was a 1,000-yard rusher, to be quite honest with you, as a fullback. So he could be that. I think that'd be a pretty big surprise for a lot of people to see another 1,000-yard running back. Just based on what happened last year. So offensively, it's I would say those two, and then on defense, I mean, Blake Fletcher, I think he's returning as the leading tackler, which they lost so many of their top tacklers from last year. He's kind of down the charts, but he did really, really well as a sophomore. I think he's going to be in that kind of Alec Mock mold in the middle of the defense. So I think he's going to be fantastic for the next couple of years there. So those are a couple of names I think will be household names. I wouldn't be surprised one bit that they're all conference players. And due to the season that Air Force had last year, I'm not sure too many people know exactly who they are. And those are the first ones that come to mind. It's easy to go backfield, right, with a triple option offense, but those are some of the guys I would expect.
What are the expectations for Air Force in 2025? I mean, how do you get back to that national recognition? I would imagine getting to a bowl game winning.
Yeah. I think the bowl game is I think that's what the expectation is, and I think it's going to be a tall order. They certainly can, but I feel like there are 3 categories of their schedule. They have the should win games. There's 3 that I look at this schedule, even not knowing what's going on at quarterback. These are games they should win. There's 6 50-50 games, and there's 3 games that are the academies plus Boise State category, right? You can't count on winning all 3 of those. Those 50-50 games are going to be huge, and they need to come. That we talked about that 7-game stint starting right after Utah State and running right through into November. They need to win 3 out of those 7 if they want to get to a bowl, and they can. But it's going to be a lot to do with how quick everyone gets acclimated, particularly again their ability to move the ball on offense. And that's not to be remiss about what the defense does. I think it's a matter of if they're doing that, it allows the defense time to develop, to again minimize how much time they run field, limit those possessions. So I think a bowl game is. I don't think it's a disappointment if they went 6-6, went to a bowl. As disappointing as it might seem, only 6 wins, I don't think it's a disappointing season. I think the reality is they could win 8 games. It's going to have a lot to do with what happens under center. I mean, I don't think a lot of people knew who Zeke Daniels was going to be during that COVID year when he came in, and everyone was expecting Donald Hammond III to be there. And then you know what? Everyone's pretty happy with the output from him afterwards. Maybe that's what Josh Johnson, Zarka, or someone else is. If their play can kind of grow and develop like that of a Hazik, or even like we talked about with Navy. It's not like Blake Horvath in his first opportunity just came in and set the world on fire. So if they can have a jump at quarterback, we could be looking at another 8-win team again. Definitely bowl eligibility, maybe even competing in the conference. But that's what it's going to come down to. And I know that's a lazy thing. It's like, oh, hey, it comes down to quarterback play. Yeah, no kidding. But I think in their circumstances, there's enough around them that can push the win or pull the win total quite a bit.
I hate to say it and be cliche. I mean, look at the Chiefs. They went from being in the playoffs and they got Mahomes, and look what they've done since he's basically been there. I don't know if it's necessarily cliche. I mean, it's kind of they're probably going to go as Zeke Daniels was phenomenal. I ended up on the Giants practice squad, and he was from not far. He was from Franklin Township. I'm going to be that guy. Predictions for Air Force football this year. I know you said, I know I asked expectations and what it would mean, but what are your predictions when you look at that schedule?
I think 7 wins. I think there's 7 wins to be had there. Air Force always wins a game they shouldn't, or more that they shouldn't. They don't. Troy Calhoun's teams are pretty consistent. I don't think once you know who they are, they don't typically drop games that they shouldn't. Not with great regularity. But I feel like they win a lot more than they shouldn't than they lose than they shouldn't. I think there's 7 wins to be had on that schedule. And by the way, I think that's a pretty good year. I mean, when I look at the schedule, there's a lot of tough games on that schedule, right? When you look at, you're going to have the round robin with the military schools, which, by the way, both were ranked teams last year. UNLV was ranked at one point last year. Boise State played in the college football playoff, if you didn't hear. There's some good teams on this schedule, right? So I think 7 wins is a pretty. That's where I see them. I'm pretty optimistic. I I'd like to get excitable, and that you could, when we hang up, you could be like, oh, he's a homer, and tell you they're going to win 10 games. I'm not there, but I think there's 7 wins to be had on that schedule, and I wouldn't be surprised there's more depending on how some things break for them.
I always trust, and I know Army's had down years. I trust Air Force probably more out of the 3 just because of their, what they do. I think there's some discipline to that. So that's why I think, and as long as Troy Calhoun's there, I truly, no, you're not being a homer. I think that, it shocked me. I remember seeing the Bucknell game last year and I was like 21-3, like what I couldn't believe. So, and then they played really well down the stretch. And I remember that Colorado State game. I think they came back and forced overtime, if I remember correctly. Or they pulled it close.
No, they brought up them to score towards the at the end, but
that's
not
what
quite,
it was.
But,
that's what it was.
I think there's empirical data that would suggest you're right, though, as far as credence that the likelihood of them sustaining out of the 3 programs. I think the evidence is there over the course of time. So
I would not be shocked if they were a 6, 7, 8, 9 win team. I know that's a large sample size, but I really wouldn't be shocked there. And I'm going to sound cliche. I think they do need to figure out the quarterback position. Look what it did for Army and Navy last year. When you look around the Mountain West Conference, if you, and I liked watching Boise, I'm not talking shit here. If you hadn't heard Boise State, to rip what you said, Boise State was in the college football playoff. They had a Heisman Trophy candidate who probably any other year would have won it. If there wasn't for Travis Hunter. Going into 2025, what are you looking for and what do you expect out of this conference?
I think it's a pretty competitive conference, top to bottom, to be honest with you. I think the floor of the conference is higher than it normally is, and I think it's really competitive at the top. I think a lot of times we were used to like Boise, pause, the next group, a bunch of people in the middle, and then the basement. I'm actually, I don't know if it'll be this year the fruits of it, but you're the coach in New Mexico. I like what you can win it at Idaho if they can get him to stick around. I think there's promise there. I don't know if this year is going to be the year. They're pretty ravaged by the portal, but I think overall the conference is pretty competitive top to bottom, to be honest with you. I don't think there's I don't care who you are. Even Boise State last year, I think it was a 1-score game against Wyoming, right? These teams they're competitive week in, week out, top to bottom, no matter who you play. I think that's going to be the sentiment this year too. I don't see any layups here. I think Nevada is going to have probably another pretty tough year. But outside of them, there's no one on here that I think it's just a dreadful team. Hawaii is replacing a lot. I'm not sure what the expectations are there. But again, I think it's pretty competitive, especially the middle of it. I think the bottom of the conference, I don't think there's a lot at the bottom. And I don't think the bottom of the conference is so much worse than the middle to the mid-top of the conference, which actually makes for some really, really good football. It's part of what's just beautiful about the Mountain West. I don't think it's all that dissimilar typically for the conference. We have some pretty good separation, but I think there's a good opportunity for parity this year.
Well, now that we're talking on the record, there's I've been negative Nelly towards UNM and in particular UNM football for a long time, and I am in our viewership and listenership has heard this. I'm very enthusiastic about this coaching staff. I don't know if this is the year, but I think here it's enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm excited to see. I'm curious if we're going to get a third straight UNLV Boise State championship game. So I would imagine we would. I know people are high on San Jose State. I had some guy, I don't know who he was. I don't know if he was credible. He had UNM at number 4, number 5 in his power rankings because people have the word that's been thrown, or the phrase that's been thrown around here is an FCS all-star team, which, you can translate to the next level.
Yeah. Ask Indiana's coach about that. right? I mean, the guy, he's made a living of just the right players, the best players. Doesn't care if you've done it, shown it, come and play. But listen, I'm one of these sickos that I watch FCS football. I watch the playoffs. I watched Idaho. So I look, your quarterback. I don't know if Jack Lane's going to be your starting quarterback, but the guy came in with no experience against Oregon, acquitted himself pretty darn good. And then look what he did the rest of the year. You went in, the guy that ran all over you last year, you went and brought him onto your team from Montana for running back, right? Like there's a lot to work with there, but I think a lot of it has to do with, again, the coach. If you can get stability at coach there, again, winning at Idaho, it's not like he took over this prominent program. He didn't come to North Dakota State and just like assume the reins of winning national championships at the FCS level. He took a program and he got them competitive regularly. I think given the right time and resources, I'm with you. I think there's reason to be optimistic. I think you got a good coach.
Whoops, almost put myself on mute there again. Great way to close. Sean, I look forward to this all the time. I will bug you again closer to the UNM Air Force game, which is November. I have the last 2 years, I've looked forward to this conversation. I tell you in text message, thank you. I appreciate your time. I can't tell you enough to your face. Thank you for your time tonight on the East Coast.
No, thanks so much. It was great chatting.
All right. That was Sean O'Toole, Mountain West Connection. Sean, have a good night. Thank you very much. Love talking to him. Always a great conversation. Very knowledgeable about Air Force football. I'm going to wrap things up here. Hopefully not as lackluster as the Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Appreciate Spencer Hill. Appreciate Sean O'Toole. Gonna go to the comments. Sean, no, thank you. Appreciate it. Comments. I didn't know it did this. It just says that he's reposted the stream. Ronnie had some questions for Spencer. I apologize. And it looks like a couple of Sean friends chimed in. Of course, he's nice. Southwestern PA, nice. Timothy Blitzky. Same guy. It's true. Sean watches FCS and tries to recruit his best friends too as well. Sean, maybe I need to fly to Pennsylvania because I do love FCS. It's really bad when it comes to college basketball. Thursday night in January, February, and March, it is, as I say on the show all the time, it is Big Sky. It is West Coast Conference. It is Big West. Maction, Horizon. I love it all. Once again, thanks to Spencer Hill, Sean O'Toole. Tomorrow night is the third installment of Together We Howl, offensive coordinator for UNM football. I almost said Spence Nowinski. Luke Schleisner. Thursday night, Fernando Lobo, tentatively. He is your UNM athletic director, and the longer title, we'll just keep it to athletic director. And I'm going to mention her maiden name, Sandy Fortner, All-American track and field star. When I was in college, I think we're in the same age. She's married to a friend of mine that I graduated high school from. She's Sandy Martin now. Once again, All-American in track and field. Just during the summer, wanted to talk to somebody different that wasn't football and basketball and shine a spotlight on those who have been successful at UNM in other sports. So looking forward to that. Friday, we will be live at Rio Bravo Brewing Company, 5 to 7. Spencer Hill will be there. It's a celebration of his sunglasses with Casey Optical too. Tentatively, I believe, UNM football coach Jason X. Don't quote me on that. Another guest to be determined, but we will be there. Come say hi. Come tell me I suck. Tell me that you think I'm pretty cool, or somewhere in between. Gonna read. Let me go back to it. Want you to check out the Pit Press Plus. It's your all access. I don't want to fumble this. That's why I looked it up. The Pit Press Plus. It's your all access pass to the heart and hustle of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department. With a monthly or yearly subscription, you'll unlock behind the scenes stories you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're a diehard fan, or a stats junkie, or just here for spicy locker room gossip, the Pit Press Plus has something for you. Subscribe today. Support local sports journalism. Support the guys at the Santa Fe New Mexican, Will Weber, James Barone. Support the Albuquerque Journal. Jeff Grammer, Sean Ryder. Help us out. And remember, Real Lobos don't settle for the sideline. $2 a month or $25 for the entire year. We're running a sale right now. It's down to $199 or $19.90. That's $199 for a month, $19.99 for the year. That's cheaper than Starbucks or even Dunkin' Donuts. It's cheaper than Dunkin' Donuts. All Lobo, no filter. Go to the pitpressnm.com. Stay in the loop with Lobo Sports. Follow the Pit Press for exclusive updates, interviews, and behind-the-scenes content. Find us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at the Pit Press NM. And we are now on TikTok at the Pit Press. Or show up and tell me he's number 1 or number 2. That was a joke. Who does number 2 work for? Appreciate everybody watching again tonight. On behalf of Eric Malton, Ed Nunez, Nick Nunez, Jacob Neff, thanks to Spencer Hill again and Sean O'Toole. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. We'll talk to you tomorrow night with Luke Schleisner, the offensive coordinator for the UNM football team. Appreciate everybody watching, everybody that supports us. Those that have prayed for subscriptions, more content's coming. We're slowly inching towards July. We will be in Las Vegas for Mountain West Conference Football Media Days, June 17th and 18th or 16th and 17th. We will be there. We're rolling deep this year. That's what she said. But yeah, 5 of us going out there. We're going to bring you all as much coverage as we can of the conference. Obviously, Richard Pierce, Gabe Lopez will be there. And then we'll also talk to Jason Eck then. But appreciate everybody. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. And don't do anything on a Tuesday night that I would do. Everybody have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.